Okay, so now we have to look at the deterioration mechanism associated with concrete. So we have discussed the corrosion, which is the main deterioration mechanism that we deal with reinforced steels and different types of reinforced steels and how the performance of those rebars when it is subjected to aggressive environments like corrosive situation. So what are the mechanisms that we can modify to obtain the desired properties, and what are the precautions that we have to take in the manufacturing stage itself so that we can enhance the performance of particular type of rebar which are sensitive to corrosion, and especially to obtain the quality of the rebars. So in what are the ways we can control the quality of the rebars? So those things we looked in detail in the first module, and the second module is all about deterioration mechanism of concrete. And I hope you most of you be familiar with this type of deterioration mechanism in your concrete technology, right? So I just want to have this class as a more of a discussion kind of thing instead of instructing what is what are those deterioration mechanism associated with concrete. Fine. So anyone can tell you, anyone can tell like what are the different mechanisms that you have studied in your concrete technology.
Ma'am, like deterioration due to chemical reactions like leaching, sulfate attacks.
Okay, I'm going to make a team groups so you can discuss from your group so that it will be like more interactive instead of just getting response from very few people among or not seven at present who are presenting the teams. Fine. So I'll just make a group quick. So I'll just make a group based on the roll number. So roll number 35, that is Akash, 8035, and then 90012 Anishri, Abdul, Abhishek, Tadich, Abhishek Vijayan, Abhinav Prasad. Right? So this is your group one. So group one, yeah. So now you can respond, Abhishek Vijayan. So you come under group one, so you can represent your group, and then, yeah.
Yes, so like should I explain about it?
No, you just tell the point, then we go. So the you give chances for your other group members as well, so that they can participate.
Yes, ma'am. So, like, I'll just start by saying that, like, deterioration. The first thing what we studied was like deterioration due to chemical reactions, and this one, the first one was like leaching, which is due to the exposure to soft acidic water. So this happens within the concrete and it happens on the surface also. Like it is due to when the calcium hydroxide which is present in the cement, it reacts to carbon dioxide, then we get the calcium carbonate, which is the white color. This is the thing which causes the leaching.
Fine. So you have pointed out the chemical attack, which could result in leaching, and then brief mechanism or how leaching happens when it when you have a calcium hydroxide in your concrete and that reacts with carbon dioxide, that could lead to the formation of calcium carbonate, and that leads to leaching. Fine. So then others from your group, what are the other type
Ma'am,
of
it is
mechanism?
acid and base attacks also, and it is also due to the salts attack. And another thing is that the result of this deterioration is like freezing and thawing mechanism will happen, and the concrete will expand, and ultimately it results the cracks in the concrete.
Great. So you were telling that acidic attack, acidic attack, then
Salts attack, ma'am.
Sorry,
Salts attacks.
salts attack.
And
Then
like ultimately, finally the freezing and thawing mechanism will happen. The concrete structure will expand, and which produce the cracks in the concrete
is
structure.
freezing and thawing is common for all type of concrete in all environment, because you are saying finally freezing and thawing will occur. So that means this occurs in all type of structure that you construct.
Not sure, ma'am.
So what is freezing and thawing?
Like it results like expansion in the concrete structure due to the reactions.
So how does it occur?
Water seeps into thermal stresses may produce
Thermal.
thermal stresses inside this.
So freezing and thawing basically that indicates two extreme conditions, right? So when especially in cold weather concrete region, so when you have some moisture in your concrete, so when the temperature gets dropped below certain degree, it will get freeze. And then when the temperature increases, that kind of results in thawing effect. So the water that got freezed, now that is going to melt and evaporate to the atmospheric condition. So that kind of leads to some pores or void formations. The cyclic effect of this, so the freezing and thawing generally comes as a cyclic effect. So the water gets freeze, and then it it defreezes and it evaporates, and that leaves some voids. So the cyclic reaction is going to lead stress concentration at that point. And when it is getting freeze, the water is getting expand, and that expansion is going to cause stress concentration around that matrix, and that results in cracking. So that is the main mechanism behind freezing and thawing. Fine. Abdul. Abdul is here. I'll better note down the
Ma'am, it can also occur by corrosion of the reinforcement.
corrosion of the reinforcement. Yeah, corrosion will be one reason, but that especially when you have a rebar embedded in it, then it will result in corrosion issue, right? But I'm just talking about only the concrete deterioration mechanisms.
Okay.
Okay, so acid attack you said that is fine, and then salt attack. So salt attack that kind of deals with corrosion, and you may have, depending on the type of salt, so that could lead to sulfate attack and chloride attacks. So chloride attacks, when the chloride come in contact with your rebar, then that will result in corrosion that we have dealt in the previous module, right? And what are the mechanism that you can think of?
Frost
Any
attack.
try? Yeah, yeah, Abhinav.
Frost attack.
Frost attack. Yep.
That is again freezing and thawing again.
Yeah, that comes under freezing and thawing. Like salt attack he has mentioned. Then you have sulfate attack and chloride attack coming under that. So
Alkali again.
yeah, alkali attack. Yeah. So what is alkali attack?
It reacts with silica.
It reacts with So when do you anticipate such type of alkali attack in your concrete?
Ma'am, when alkaline cement, it reacts with silica.
Mm.
Uh, there's deterioration.
Yeah. So where does the reaction taking place between cement,
And silica, amorphous silica.
silica? Where is it coming from? You have silica in your cement also, right?
Uh,
We generally call reactive silica that is there in aggregate. So when you have reactive silica aggregate, and that reactive silica aggregate could react with cement, so the alkali present in the cement. So when you say cement, it is not exactly the cement. So it reacts with the alkali present in the cement in the presence of water. So for this reaction to occur, you need to have alkalis in cement, you need to have reactive silica aggregate, and then you need to have water. So in the presence of these three, you will observe such type of deterioration due to alkali attack. So we generally call alkali silica reaction, right? So your alkalis in cement and silica in aggregate reacts together in the presence of water, and that leads to some expansive gel formation. And because of that expansive product, you observed cracking on the concrete surface. So anything here in the concrete deterioration mechanism, so that occurs due to expansion of the product that is occurring from the reaction between the cement particles or aggregates due to external agent. So in such cases, you observe such type of product forming, and which typically expansive in nature, and which results in stress concentration in your concrete, and your concrete cannot withstand such stress induced due to the expansion, and that lead to cracking. And as it progress, the concentration will increases, thus your stresses in tensile stress in concrete will get increased, so the crack width get widen, and that will lead to severe deterioration over the period. So this is the fundamental mechanism behind the concrete deterioration thing. So other than this, anything that you can recollect?
reaction with carbonate also. Alkaline carbonate.
Carbonate, fine, good. So carbonation, fine. So Akash, are you there? Anish Rai,
Yes, ma'am.
would you like to add some?
Alkali carbonate reaction.
Sorry?
Alkali carbonate reaction. Carbonate reaction.
Alkali carbonate reaction, right? Can you explain the mechanism? Alkali carbonate reaction, is it right? Anish Rai? Anish, can you explain what is the alkali carbonate reaction?
Ma'am, it's a reaction between sodium carbonate and calcium.
It's a reaction between sodium
Carbonate
Mhm.
and
and
calcium oxide.
calcium oxide. Okay, where do you expect such type of deterioration?
Not sure.
Fine. So we'll move to the next group. So that is from 005 to, so Abhinav already there. Okay. So 006 to 11. Amit Vikram. So Aditya Ajit, Aditya Kiran, Ansh Rajendra Agarwal, and Ahmed Rashid, Amar Kumar, Amit Vikram. So Amit Vikram, Aditya Ajit. Can you explain me the scenario where you can expect such type of attacks that was mentioned by those were mentioned by group 1? Aditya? And please remember this comes under your assessment part. So I have told 5 marks for quiz and 5 marks for discussion. Aditya Kiran. That way I'm also getting familiar with the names.
Hello, ma'am.
Yeah, Amit.
Ma'am, concrete deterioration also takes place through some of the alkali aggregate reactions.
Yes. So where do you expect such type of alkali aggregate reaction?
Alkali aggregate reaction, ma'am. We know that the cement, the concrete material is basic in nature.
So yeah, the previous group have explained how alkali aggregate reaction occur. So I want you to explain how so where do you expect such type of alkali aggregate reaction, and do you know the ways to fix it? So if you expect if you expect alkali aggregate reaction to occur, what are the ways to control it?
Ma'am, we can use such cement which has less, after forming the concrete, it has less basic character, like less
Cement?
alkaline cement can be used for making the concrete paste, or we can avoid using such cement in the places where water is more.
So you are right. So you can use cement with less alkalis. What type of cement those has less alkalis in it? And other thing is like the aggregate that you use. So if that is reactive, then only the reaction will take place, right? So you can use not less reactive or no silica aggregate. So when you have reactive silica content in your aggregate, then only the reaction takes place. So you can avoid those things, right? So can anyone tell where do you expect acid attack?
Ma'am, acid attack may sometimes happen due to the microbial activity. Maybe due to the algae deposition on the concrete structure. Sometimes microbial or some bacteria develop over there, and they consume the algae products or something, some and they produce acids on the structure, and that may cause the deterioration.
Fine.
So we can avoid it by maintenance, like cleaning the surfaces, or maybe through avoiding the collection of water over that structure, or maybe it happens sometimes where there are pipelines due to the leakages in them, and due to regular seepage of water through those structures, sometimes algae deposits over there, and microbial activity triggers the acid attack.
Fine. So you're right. So those are one of the reasons why you expect such type of acid attack. And can you tell the common places where you can observe such type of deterioration application, in the sense like structures where you can observe? So you have told like what could cause this.
Ma'am, places where there are more pipelines
Mm-hmm.
due to the regular leaching of
So one of the things is
seepage of
sewage
water.
pipelines.
Yeah, yes, ma'am.
Fine.
And also some during in the environmental engineering, we learned that several pipelines are so big that they are made of concrete, and in them also the concrete deterioration may take place through these things like leakage of water,
Mm.
and uh, and many times they are under the ground, so there also microbial activity may trigger the acid attack.
All right. Fine. Good. Amal Kumar. Ahmed. So that's it from group 2. Fine. So the next 6 will be under group 3. Jayashree, Ankit Singh,
Ma'am,
Apur, Arvindan, Arun. Right? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Ashwin. Yeah. So can you tell me what in the concrete that leads to deterioration? Why a concrete deteriorates? Jayashree? Ankit Singh? Sorry. Ankit Singh, right? Ankit Singh, are you there? Jayashree? See, when I call, at least please respond. Because I can see you guys are there online. But if I'm not getting respond,
Excuse me, ma'am, this is Arvind.
Yes, Arvind.
Uh, because of corrosion of reinforcing steel and other embedded metals, is the leading cause.
Okay. So
Basically,
you assume that your concrete doesn't have any rebars in it. It's plain concrete.
it's plain.
Okay, so it's a plain concrete. So now can you tell what would lead to deterioration? So in the previous groups have told that certain chemicals that that comes in contact with concrete that reacts, and because of this reaction and the resultant product, the results in some expansive product which could result in stress concentration and further leads to cracking. So now what is the basic thing that leads to such reaction and
It has basically reactive silica in it,
mhm.
which can
No, I'm
react with
talking
the other
about only
chemicals.
concrete.
Yeah,
So consider there is no external element. So when you have external elements come in contact with concrete, then only the reaction takes place, right?
okay.
So now the question is, you have concrete, and what in concrete could lead to such type of foreign elements to come in and this reaction?
Normal wind and other like
Yeah, Arvind?
it can be from the water body surrounding it, or maybe
Yeah, you are right. Proceed.
which can potentially cause some volumetric change in the concrete.
Mm-hmm. Volumetric change in concrete.
The aggregates that are present in the concrete can also expand.
Aggregates. No, typically aggregates don't expand because that is one of the strongest material in your concrete, which is used for obtaining dimensional stability. So the paste that you have in concrete that has a tendency to, change in its volume, but aggregates typically they do not change in volume. Okay, I will put this question in this way. So what would be the right strategy to design your concrete such a way that it will not deteriorate in long run?
A proper W by C ratio.
Proper W by C ratio, right?
Ideal W by C ratio. And
Right.
there may be presence of unstable elements in the concrete.
So unstable elements in concrete. Okay.
I don't know after this one. I'm not really getting ideas right now.
Fine. Okay, no issues. Uh, anyone else from this group? Okay, I'll just touch upon the other group also. With that, I will stop this group discussions and then we can get into the class. The final group for this lecture would be from Aish Ranjan, Babita, Bala Vignesh, Bhavana,
Yes, ma'am.
Bengal Reddy, Yuvraj. Yeah.
Yes,
So
ma'am.
can you add some point on this? No, continuing with group 3. So I asked two questions: why concrete has deteriorating, and then what are the strategy that we can choose so that we can design a good concrete which can stay for longer duration. What leads to deterioration, especially when we talk about concrete? Because when we discussed corrosion, we talked about certain things about pH level in the concrete that helps to protect the steel, and when that gets dropped, then the passivation layer gets this that gets destroyed, and then that leads to corrosion initiation and all. So like that, what do you think would lead to deterioration here when we talk about concrete? I think I have covered this in a bit in the previous class also, because the concrete that plays a role to protect the steel rebars, right? So in such case, how do you obtain the quality of concrete? So what would be the primary factor to consider so that you can obtain good quality concrete?
Proper selection of materials.
Talking about strategy, right? How do you ensure you are selecting a good material? So this is like a very vague statement. So can you be specific?
Like checking the quality of the raw material.
Okay, so then quality of the raw material. How do you check the quality of raw material?
Uh,
What
following
parameter
the
that you look?
rules like IS standards and regulations.
Okay, so what is the parameter or factor that you look while selecting certain type of materials? So here we have cement, aggregate, water, and if you put all together, you get this concrete, right? So when you have concrete, uh, in the hardened concrete, how does the structure will look? What are the prime structures that you have inside your concrete, which will help you to obtain required strength and durability?
Ma'am, can you come again once more? I didn't get your question.
Okay, so as you said, like you have to choose a right material for for the required applications, and you need to check the quality of the raw materials that you use, right? So you are going to put all the materials together, cement, aggregate, water, to get the concrete, and now
Yeah.
the hardened concrete will have certain type of structure, right?
Yes.
So that structure is the final one that is going to withstand outside and exposed to different environmental condition or
Yes.
exposure condition. So now all the mechanisms that was mentioned by the previous groups, mechanism in the sense the possible deteriorations that could result in concrete. So
Yes.
those are like due to external elements. So that reacts with the concrete. So now my question is, what in concrete that leads to such reaction? You got the point?
Okay, like CSH and like other materials.
Yeah, CSH and other materials. What are the other materials? Other materials and structures as well. You have different structure forms inside concrete, right?
Um,
Pores, voids,
okay.
mainly voids,
Yes.
right? So that is the thing that is going to give path for the foreign elements to enter into your concrete,
Yes.
right?
Ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
So the porosity is the primary thing that needs to be considered when you need to design a durable concrete. So how does the pore should be? So either it should be less or more, that depending on the application or design that you are looking for. If you are going for choosing a lightweight aggregate, then you can have many pores, but the pores should not be interconnected. So when the pores are not connected, you will not have any problem with your concrete. But when the pores are connected, that will lead to path for the other elements to enter into your concrete. If it is interconnected, so the agents that are those are entering into your concrete will get stuck at that point itself. But those are if the pores are connected, then it can travel smoothly through the concrete and reach to the different parts of your concrete, where you may have your hydrated products in the form of CSH and then calcium hydroxide, so which are like very a weak component in your concrete, and that could react with chemicals and result in different deterioration. And similarly, when you have reinforced bars embedded inside it, and that rebars could corrode, and that will lead to other mechanisms. So these are the things that we are going to mainly cover in this module, and I presume that you are all familiar with the mechanisms already. So I'm not going to touch those mechanisms in detail, but I'm just briefly tell what are the ways you can enhance performance of your concrete when you encounter such scenarios, right? Right. So here you can see a flow chart which in detail comprises all the type of degradation associated with your concrete. So when we have reinforced concrete systems, we have two things. One is concrete, so the deterioration mechanism involved with concrete, associated with concrete. Another one is the corrosion of reinforcement. So this we have seen in detail. So when we have corrosion of reinforcement, the main thing that leads to corrosion is a carbonation. When you have carbon dioxide entering into a matrix, and then the chlorides, that will lead to corrosion of reinforcement. And stray current, so this is typically in not in scope of this reinforced concrete systems that we are talking in general use, but when you have offshore structures there, this becomes a critical thing to play, but those are not in scope of this course. So now let's look at the degradation of concrete. So the causes could be, you will have mechanical degradation. So all the degradation mechanisms that you have told so far are associated with chemical degradation. So other than chemical degradation, you have degradation due to mechanical thing, and then the physical. So that you covered the freeze and thaw. So that depends on the structure of your concrete and then the environmental condition. And this also covers the the structural change due to the exposure for fire. So when your structure is exposed to the fire, your concrete will react in certain way, and your the compounds that is there in the concrete will get changed in certain way, leading to degradation. So this comes under physical thing. And mechanical thing, when your concrete is subjected to abrasion, erosion, and impact and explosion, so those would result in certain way of degrading your concrete. So those comes under mechanical degradation. And structural degradation, so when you overload your concrete structures, because of that overloading, that will degrade, because when the demand exceeds the capacity of your structure cannot withstand the overload that is being experienced by them. And then the settlement and cyclic loading. Then the biological attack, so where you have this fouling biogenic attack due to microbial thing. So can you tell me, are you familiar with this mechanical degradation? I understand that you are all familiar with chemical degradation and some to some extent about biological degradation. So abrasion and erosion, I don't think so. So you are not that familiar with the mechanical degradation, am I right? If I get response, that will be helpful to focus on those particular topics. That's why I'm asking you. And,
Yes.
and please understand, no, I have short of time to cover the syllabus, and I will not be available after mid of October. So I just want to cover the portions before that. So fine. So in that case, I will give more focus to this mechanical degradation and fire. I think that's it. And some aspect to structural degradation. Fine. So you all know the quality of covercrete is very important to protect the rebar, right? Because the covercrete is the first part of your concrete which is going to be in contact with the elements that is entering into the concrete from the external environment. So in such a way, so to obtain the good quality, it is very important to achieve a good covercrete along with your good quality hotcrete. So generally the region that is there inside the reinforcement, we call it as hotcrete, and then the outside reinforcement, we call it as covercrete, which is covered to protect your rebar. So to obtain the good quality concrete, you need to have good materials. You need to use appropriate mix designs by considering the adequate water cement ratio and then the cement content and the way you use to place the concrete in its position, and then the type of curing that you adapt and the duration of the curing. So those also governs the strength and durability part of your concrete. So these are all essential to obtain a good quality concrete material. So this is what I was talking about. So when you have hydrated or hardened concrete, so these are the different structures that you have inside your concrete matrix. So this now by looking at it, you got recollect from your concrete technology course that you have studied various size of pores inside the concrete that plays a different role in obtaining strength and durability. So the size and distribution of pores that also influences mainly the rate of increase of deleterious elements through covercrete. So if you have small pores and if you have larger pores, so that also influences the the increase of external elements. And as long as if the pores are not connected, the significance of degradation will be this, that if those pores are connected, the degradation will be significant. What are the ways to control it? So depending on the problem and depending on the environmental conditions, you can choose certain type of admixtures for enhancing the required performance. So when we design a good quality concrete, these are the primary thing that we look for. So we need to obtain good workable concrete and need to have good strength, and we need to design it for longer durability. So to obtain all these things, you need to use adequate admixtures and then the required particle packing. So the particle packing is you pack all the materials efficiently in such a way that you can reduce the pores in the concrete as much as possible. And adequate curing is of course important to ensure the hydration process is taking place completely, and then to avoid any moisture, evaporation of moisture from your concrete. So when you have such scenario, either your strength will not be obtained or the evaporation of moisture from the concrete that could lead to shrinkage issues, the plastic shrinkage issues. So no one has talked about shrinkage or creep thing. So I request, the other teams to brush up those shrinkage and creep. I remember I covered these things in detail in the concrete technology course, so that, before we start the next class, we can touch up on those things quickly. So by now you all are familiar with the need of usage of mineral admixtures in concrete. So we also call the mineral admixtures as supplementary cementitious mineral admixtures. So supplementary cementitious materials as ACMs. The main role of this ACMs is this could help you to replace certain amount of cement in it, so that wherever you need to reduce the cement content, this would be helpful. And the main mechanism here is this results in Postlanic reaction called Postlanic activity. So what is the Postlanic activity? So when you have something that could react with calcium hydroxide in the presence of water, that will result in additional CSH. So this type of additional CSH will be formed. When you have additional CSH, you get additional CSH. The pores, the extra pores in the concrete matrix will get filled by this additional CSH and making your concrete structure more denser and less porous. So you can enhance the strength and durability in that aspect by using ACMs. The main purpose of using this is you get highly compacted microstructure and reduced pores and pore connectivity, and that will result in good cover grit. So these are the things, when we talk about good quality concrete, we mainly look at obtaining high compacted microstructure and less pores and pore connectivity. And these are some ways to obtain this type of highly compacted structure. You can use ACMs, you can reduce the water cement ratio. So when you reduce the water binder ratio, you may face workability issue. So to account that, you can use super plasticizers, and the good placement of concrete, the way you place and then the compaction that you do. So those also are important to achieve better compacted microstructure and adequate curing to ensure you obtain a good cover grid by ensuring water is there to complete the hydration process and no water gets evaporated from the concrete to the outside environment. So when you obtain this, you can get more resilient concrete. So the resistance to deleterious elements get increased when you have high compacted microstructure. And these are some examples of indicating how the low water cement ratio will helpful to obtaining the enhance your strength and durability. So this plot basically indicates diffusion coefficient. So the diffusion coefficient is some parameter that we look when the external elements get diffused through your concrete matrix. So how does it diffuse? So through the pores that is there in the concrete, the foreign agent or external agent that can travel through the pores, and the rate at which it travels, that is denoted by diffusion coefficient. So this is a plot obtained using Life 365 software. So this is one of the good tools to obtain how the service life of the structure or service life of the designed concrete would be enhanced by knowing these type of parameters that will be helpful for understanding the performance of your concrete. So this is the case. You can consider the water cement ratio, where you have higher water cement ratio, the pores will be in huge quantity, and then when you have water cement ratio lower, you can get more denser microstructure, so with less pores. So in such cases, you can see the diffusion coefficient will get reduced as the water cement ratio decreases. So when you have high water cement ratio, you have high diffusion coefficient, and when you have less water cement ratio, that gets reduced. So typically this represents the coefficient of diffusion for concrete at 28 days. We typically do check the strength and the parameters at 28 days once we consider the concrete has hardened completely. So mostly 90 to 95% of the strength will be obtained at 28 days. So we typically go with 28-day strength parameters. So from this, what you understand is the lower the diffusion coefficient, lower the rate of foreign elements to get in. So the rate of chloride ingress, for example, if you consider the chloride as one of the external agent that would come in contact with your concrete, so the rate of chloride ingress will get reduced when you have low water cement ratio. Why? Because when you have low water cement ratio, your diffusion coefficient will be lower. Another case here you can consider is use of ACMs. So when you use fly ash or silica, that will result in additional CSH. When you get additional CSH, you get more denser microstructure that could result in higher strength and better durability. So the diffusion coefficient will be reduced when you use such type of mineral admixtures. So you can see as the age of concrete increases, and when you have used different types of concrete with different mineral admixtures, your diffusion coefficient has reduced. But one point to note here is here you should not use 28-day strength, because these mineral admixtures that you add in concrete, so this needs calcium hydroxide to be produced. Basically all the hydration products that you obtained from your normal cement and concrete, that has to be completed, because This reacts with the hydrated product, that is your calcium hydroxide in the presence of water. So the reaction typically takes place after 28 days once the reaction between your normal cement and water has completed. So that is why at 28 day you do not see any changes, and even before that, your plain concrete has a lower diffusion coefficient compared to your concrete with silica, or sorry, slag or fly ash. So why? Because those those concrete with mineral admixtures that needs some time for its reaction. So for the hydration product to occur, you need to wait till 28 days. So the reaction, the mineral admixture, the Postlanic reaction that takes place after 28 days. So after 28 days, it produces additional CSH. Thus your matrix become denser after 28 days. So you can see the changes after 28 days where the diffusion coefficient gets decreased. So you can see the diffusion coefficient value gets decreased after 28 days when you use fly ash of about 40%. That means you replace the cement content 40% of cement content with fly ash, and here you replace the cement content 30% of cement with the use of slag, that is SG. It's represented as SG here. So when you have more Postlanic reaction that produces additional CSH, your microstructure gets denser. So your diffusion coefficient gets reduced. And here is another example how the silica fume can help. So silica fumes are very fine. So when you use such type of silica fumes, your diffusion coefficient can drastically reduce. So that's all with mineral admixtures. Now I'm going to focus about chemical admixtures that we use. So different chemical admixtures that we can use in concrete to enhance certain properties. Superplasticizer, for example, to enhance the workability, and corrosion inhibitors to enhance the the corrosion resistance in concrete. So this part of this is already covered in previous module. And then air entrainer. So this will be helpful when you need to obtain the lightweight concrete, and especially when you need to design the concrete in cold weather region, cold condition, to resist freeze thaw effect or frost action. And then retarders, when you need to keep the workability of concrete for longer duration, and especially in ready mixed concrete where the concrete be prepared at the plant and it will be transported to the construction site. An accelerator, and this will be useful when you need to remove the formwork earlier, and it could be useful when the concrete has to be done in cold weather region where the reaction will be very slower. So when you use accelerator, that will help you to enhance the performance. And shrinkage reducing admixtures, when you have large surface area, so see here the surface area is large, so such large surface area is exposed to environmental outside environment. When the temperature and humidity is especially humidity is lesser, that is going to take some moisture from your structure to the environment. So when the moisture gets evaporate from your surface, that will lead to plastic shrinkage issues. So in such cases, when you use shrinkage reducing admixtures, you can avoid such type of cracks on the surface. So this all you might have know when to use chemical admixtures, right? So now can you explain about the sulfate attack, external and internal thing? So this also I covered in the previous course, concrete technology course. What is sulfate attack, and when do you expect external sulfate attack and internal sulfate attack? So just to have a quick recap. So when you have such sulfate attack, basically the sulfates, the external sulfates react with the hydration product, and that leads to deterioration. So this is one thing that comes under external category, and there is another thing that could come under internal category is that unreactant sulfates in your concrete. So that could react in later stage once your concrete has hardened, and that will lead to formation of Ringgit. Basically, when the sulfate attack occurs, you encounter such type of Ringgit formation and thus cracking. So you will see such type of Ringgit needle formation, Ringgit in the form of needles, and typically Ringgits are expansive in nature and leads to cracking. So when you have such sulfate attack, you can observe whitish appearance on the surface, and damages are usually starting at the edges and corners, followed by cracking and spalling of the concrete. So what are the sources of such external sulfates? So when your concrete is in contact with soil, you will observe such type of sulfate attack at the interface where you have contact between the soil and the concrete. So most soil contains sulfates in the form of gypsum, and this is harmless. When the percentage is in this level, this is harmless to the concrete. But when the presence of sulfate that exceeds then this limit, then that could react with your concrete and leads to such deterioration. And the groundwater, so which the groundwater with high concentration of sulfates, that could result in such type of sulfate attack. So it is most common to see these type of attacks or in natural and industrial waters. So this type of high concentrated sulfates would be present in industrial waste waters. So these are the typical mechanism that you expect due to sulfate attack. So you get the sulfates entering into your concrete that reacts with the calcium hydroxide. So typically, calcium hydroxide is the weak product in your concrete that has a tendency to react with all type of agents that enter into your concretes. So because of that, you observe deterioration. So the pores and then the calcium hydroxide. So these are the you know enemies for concrete itself. So if you have a huge quantity of pores and calcium hydroxide, that leads to other deterioration mechanisms by letting the elements to enter into your concrete and then by reacting with them, mainly the calcium hydroxide, which could react with the elements entering into your concrete. So in this case, you have sulfates. So the calcium hydroxide reacts with sulfate, and that leads to this formation, gypsum formation, and further this gypsum that reacts with the C4ASH, that is your hydrated product due to sorry hydrated product we call a cash. When you have aluminates and silicates react, that you will get this type of hydrated product, and that reacts with your gypsum. You observe a formation of Ringgit. So what are the things that led to when you have a high permeable concrete? Other sources, the external sulfates can enter into your concrete. So what are the ways to control it? You can reduce the water cement ratio. You can add pozzolans or slag additions to get the denser matrix. And for this case, when the sulfate reacts with calcium hydroxide, the main thing is calcium hydroxide. So you need to reduce the content of calcium hydroxide as much as possible. What are the ways to reduce it? When you use mineral admixture, then mineral admixtures react with your calcium hydroxide to produce additional CSH. So in the process, your calcium hydroxide is getting consumed, and the quantity of calcium hydroxide will get reduced. So the strategy here is to using mineral admixtures alone. And then the final thing is, this gypsum would react with the silicate cash, that is CASH. So in such cases, the main controlling factor is that your C3A content of cement. So what you can do is you can use type 2 or type 5 cement which has less C3A content. So in addition to the sulfates, you can also observe attack by magnesium sulfate. So this could be due to sodium sulfates or something. And when you have attack by magnesium sulfates, the damage is going to be severe. Why? Because the magnesium hydroxide that is formed in the reaction with the CSH. So that replaces the calcium ions with the magnesium ions. When you replace the calcium ion with magnesium ion, that destroys the cementing property, the cementing effect. So that means the binding effect will be lost. So your concrete will not stay and you will see severe spalling of concrete. So that is why magnesium sulfate attack is more severe than the other type of sulfate attack. Why? Because the calcium in it get replaced by magnesium and that destroys the cementing effect. So these are some examples you can see over the duration how your concrete pole has deteriorated due to sulfate attack. And these are other sources in which you can get such external sulfates that could come in contact with your concrete. So this is a sewer pipe, so which has a lot of sulfates content in it, and that could result in. See, most of the things that you can see are interconnected. So you will see, the cause of one thing will lead to the cause of other type of deterioration also. So here you may observe as acidic attack that gets in contact with your sulfate attack. So how to avoid such type of external sulfates? You can use the cement, different cements which has less C3A content. So first is that check the sulfate content in the soil, groundwater, or whichever could be the source for external content, and choose the appropriate cement. So then you have to use concrete with low permeability. So the common solution to design a concrete for meeting durability is that your concrete has to be as less permeable as possible. So design a concrete with low permeability so you can obtain a better durable concrete. And here is the range given. So when you have water cement ratio in the x-axis, you can see the water cement ratio ranging from higher to the lower range here. So as you go down, you can see the percentage of expansion that results due to the sulfate attack gets reduced. And at the same time, the use of different types of cement that also helpful for you to reduce the expansion. So when you use type 1, which is typically containing higher C3A content, and then when you use type 2, that is containing the C3A content lesser than 7%, and type 5, which contains C3A content lesser than 5%. So when you use these type of cements, you can expect less expansion, and thus the degradation will be lesser compared to your type 1 cement. And ACA has given certain norms to follow when you have different levels of sulfate content in your water. So when you have the sulfate content less than 150 ppm, so that indicates very less quantity of sulfate, so you no need to have any specific restriction on the cement type. So you can go with the normal type 1 itself, but as this sulfate content increases, then it is better for you to choose the appropriate cement content with use of CSH, so that you can reduce the calcium hydroxide in the concrete, which could react with external source. So when it goes beyond 10,000 ppm, then you can keep a restriction on your water cement ratio also. Your water cement ratio should be less than 4.5. That means you are limiting your water cement ratio to be at this range itself. So this is the ideal case to be used, and this whole range should not be considered in such case. And you know the cause for internal sulfate attack, right? So when you have something inside unreactant, and when you have a suitable scenario for the unreactant product to react, you will get volumetric expansive product, and which results in cracking. So this is generally happening when you have a high temperature in the early stage of your concreting. So this is also called delayed ettringate formation. So in the hydration process, ettringate is one of the hydrated product that you obtain at the end of hydration, right? So when the formation of ethringate is suppressed during its hydration process, and this is allowed when your concrete is hardened, then the formation of ethringate is leading to expansion in the hardened concrete and leads to cracking. So this is a typical case when you have a temperature higher in the early concrete. So when you have such temperature high temperature in the early stage, that basically prevents the normal formation of ethringate that occurs during hydration. And then you have in the hydrated product you have some voids and things. So when the later stage, when the temperature is reduced and when the reaction takes place, then leads to the formation of ethringate and cracking. So that you can see here the presence of voids around the coarse aggregate indicating the expansion of cement paste, and sometimes these voids are filled with ethringate crystals, which also often fill other voids and cracks in the matrix. Because of the late precipitation of ethringate, the phenomena is called delayed ethringate formation. So the expansive product that tries to fill the available pores and voids in your concrete, but beyond certain limit, your pores and voids will not be sufficient to accommodate the expansive product, so that leads to cracking. So here in the right side, you can see, the product gets filled up and then that leads to cracking after a certain limit. So this is a main a diagram that indicates, evolution and volume of hydration products of Portland cement. So typically your ethringate formation is occurring at, starting from second day of your hydration, and it ends at, yeah. So it kind of comes stable after 7 days. So it typically starts forming from here itself once you have your hydration process and attain its peak at this after 24 hours. And after 2 days, it gets dropped because it basically reacts further to form monosulfate. But here the point to note is that your ethringate formation will be suppressed at this stage, and this formation is allowed at the later stage to have delayed ethringate formation. You can see the clear mechanism here. The expansion in the paste caused delayed ethringate origin cracks in the paste and at the aggregate cement paste interface. So where do you expect such type of delayed ethringate formations? When you have mass concreting, because when you have mass concreting, the temperature inside your concrete may get significantly high due to the heat emitted during the hydration process. So certain the yearly formation of ethringate will be suppressed when the temperature is above 70 degrees Celsius, and that is typical case when you have mass concreting. And over the duration, when the temperature of the concrete gets reduced to the atmospheric conditions, you observe such type of delayed ethringate formation. So these are some of the examples where you can see such delayed ethringate formations where you have mass concreting in like dam structures or bridge structures, where you really have a thick member where the thickness itself more than 1 meter. So these are some of the survey that indicates several bridges are undergoing delayed ethringate formations, where the temperature could be ranging from 60 to 80 degrees Celsius. So please go through this in detail. You can understand the mechanism behind it. So in such cases, using C3A content, less C3A cement would be helpful. So what are the ways to prevent such delayed ethringate formation? You can lower the curing temperature. So keep the temperature less than 70 degrees Celsius. So especially this is very common when you use steam curing. So steam curing is done basically to enhance the strength in the early stage. So when you have steam curing, you can accelerate the hydration process to obtain the early strength gain. But you may anticipate such type of delayed and ringate formations in the later stage when the temperature goes beyond 70 degrees Celsius. So we need to keep a check that the curing temperature is less than 70 degrees Celsius, and then the concrete should be less permeable, and you can use cement with less C3A content, and the water should not be in contact with the hardened concrete, so the availability of water should be less. So these are some ways to prevent sulfate attack. And now you all familiar with alkali silica reaction, so I'm not touching in detail. So all you need to have is water, reactive aggregate, alkalis. So in the presence of these three, you will observe alkali aggregate reaction. So you will have something called like when these things reacts, you will have more expansion product, and that results in cracking. So that product is called ASR gel, alkali silica reaction gel. So you can see such gel formations, and this when this tries to expand, you observe cracks. So initially this will try to fill up the pores and voids that is there in concrete, and further growth of this gel will leads to cracking. So here you can see why the ASR occurs. So when hydroxides of sodium, potassium present in cement, that is basically your alkalis, that reacts with the aggregate, that results in silicate gel. So when you have silicate gel formation, that has a tendency to absorb water and that expands. Because of this expansion, that leads to cracking. So now when the gel dehydrates, so that leaves the cracks open. But when the reaction is occurring, you will observe such type of gel formations which would fill up, and further growth of gel will leads to cracking. So what are the ways to reduce it? When the silica content in the matrix, especially in the form of silica fume, when you use silica fume with your cement, so that has high surface area, and the concentration of alkalis will get lower. So in such cases, you will observe non-swelling gel formations. So when you have something that is not expansive, that is not going to harm your concrete. But when you have something that is going to expand in your hardened concrete, that is the problem. So when you have such non-swelling gels, then that will not induce any damage to your concrete. So this is one of the solution that you can use for ASR condition. You can use silica fume which has high surface area, and at the same time when you add silica fume in your cement, so you can reduce the concentration of alkalis in it, and these things could result in non-swelling gels which is not harmful for your concrete. And the reaction to occur, you need to have potential reactive forms of silica, and if you avoid this reactive silica, especially in aggregate, then you will not have ASR issue. So you can see what type of aggregates that could have alkali reactant, and then the time required for such alkali reactant aggregate to cause distress. So these are different forms of reactive silica, and these are the sources from which you can obtain such reactive silica, and time taken for causing such distress. So the alkali silica glass is more reactive. So within a year, you can see cracking due to ASR, and when you have fillets, that is in forms of silicate layers, so that is a very low reactant silica, so that it takes long time for causing the same distress that you expect when you use alkali silica glass. So knowing that, you can choose the type of aggregates that you can use for concreting. So the basic mechanism is that you have the aggregate paste. So high pH in cement content promotes the hydrolysis of reactive silica. So that means you have the silica, reactive silica, and then you have in the presence of water, this leads to hydrolysis. So that means the silica reacts with the water, that forms the silicon hydroxide, and that reacts with the paste to form silicon oxide, and further that absorbs the sodium potassium to form a expansive gel. And how do you identify such type of ASR cracks? Means typically ASR cracks will be a group of cracks like map cracks. So you can see in a pillar, it's a pier, bridge pier, column of a bridge which has vertical cracks, and here in the parapet you can see a lot of cracks in the form of group of cracks as map cracks. So these are some indication or the pattern to identify the crack could be due to ASR. So see, it will not be a single crack, you will have multiple cracks showing in a structure. So it is in a bridge column, you can see vertical cracks, and at the same time it got spread in this way as well. So it's a group of cracks in the form of, we call it as map cracks when you typically have such cracks widespread along the surface. And this is one of the examples where you can see such ASR. It's a dam, because when you have thick members there, if you use a reactive aggregate, then obviously those type of structures will be in contact with water all the time, and that could lead to such type of ASR deterioration mechanism. And this is one of the examples that you can observe in concrete pavements. And as it grows, the crack gets wider. You can see the thickness of cracks here, ranging from some mm to centimeters. So this is what we typically call as ASR induced crack. So when you have, again, so when you have crack formation, then it is easier for other elements to get into your concrete system, especially when you have reinforced concrete system, that will lead to corrosion in addition to this ASR issue. So you can see some rust formation on the surface, which indicates that this ASR induced cracking leads to the corrosion initiation issue. So the deterioration mechanism will be like even more severe, because you have your concrete deteriorating as well as your steel is also deteriorating. So the performance of your structure will be reduced drastically over the time. So these are the signs that indicates that your structure needs to be monitored, and it needs to be addressed the particular issue which causes the deterioration, to enhance the performance to meet its application. So we have certain types of test methods to conduct, so which will help us to address the understand the severity of ASR cracking. So one is that petrographic examination, and mortar bar and prism. So here you can also use some type of gel fluorescent test for detecting the ASR. So when you spray this gel on the surface, you usually acetate base, so that will induce this type of fluorescent presence of fluorescence on the surface, indicating the ASR expansive gel. And another test is mortar bar. You can prepare a prism and you can measure the length of this prism over the time, and change in length basically indicates the severity of your ASR attack, because when you have ASR attack, that is leading to deteriorate the concrete, so you may observe a reduction in its length, or you may observe the increase in length. So depending on that, you can find out the deterioration mechanism. Other ways is that you can spray the lithium on the surface of your concrete. So this will help you to treat the mechanism. So when you spray the lithium, so this will help you to obtain a non-expansive gel. So the lithium gets, that will be absorbed by your concrete surface, and then that reduces the the reactivity of your silica and alkalis in it, and helps you to control the ASR attack. So these are other ways. The whole columns are electrochemical treated with the lithium. So electrochemically treated with lithium. So the lithiums are embedded on the surface. enhancing the ASR attack. So here, this one basically helps you to like when you use lithium, that basically controls the level of alkalis in your cement. So you can see if you have lithium to alkalis ratio greater than 0.4, then the expansion is reduced. So typical dosage that you can consider would be like 4.6 liters of 30% lithium nitrate solution for every 1 gram of sodium oxide that is there in a concrete. So that is basically represents the alkali content in your concrete. So if you add 30% lithium nitrate, then you can reduce the expansion and thus the cracking due to ASR attack. So you can see when you use the control specimen that is without lithium, and when you use lithium, this basically the concrete is treated with lithium for 10 days, 10 weeks, and you have increased the duration. So when you treat the lithium for longer duration, that could help you to reduce the expansion significantly compared to your controlled concrete. So here you can see the lithium concentration, and then as you increase the concentration, you can reduce the cracking. So this basically indicates heavy cracking, moderate cracking, and light cracking. So when the lithium dosage is lower, you may observe heavy cracking, but when the lithium content is increased, you are getting light cracking. So the cracking will be there, but the severity of cracking will not be that significant because you will have less expansion when the lithium content is more. Right? So I'm stopping it here. So in the next class, we will focus on shrinkage and creep mechanisms. Fine. All right. See you tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.
Ma'am?
Yeah?
When will the marks be returned, ma'am?
I'll check the responses and
Okay.
Stop the recording.